You're lucky I even let you come, Dad. Don't embarrass me in front of my friends again. That was my daughter, Emma. 35 years old, sharp-tongued, beautiful, and, at least that night, unrecognizable to me. My name's Daniel Carter. I'm 71, from Chicago. I'd been invited to her dinner party at a downtown restaurant, the kind with dim lighting and prices that could silence a room. I thought she wanted company. I didn't realize I'd been brought as a punchline. She sat at the head of the table, laughing, wine glass in hand. Around her were 6 of her colleagues, well-dressed, confident, the type that measure worth by titles. When I arrived, she gave me that forced smile, the one people use when they wish you hadn't shown up. "This is my dad," she said, waving casually. "He's retired now, mostly keeps busy, collecting old books, I guess." Then she laughed, as if my life's peace was something to mock. "He used to run some small firm back in the day. Now I take care of him. He'd be lost without me." Her friends laughed politely, glancing at me like I was some relic they weren't sure how to handle. I smiled and nodded. "It's good to meet you all." My voice came out steady, practiced even. I'd been through boardrooms, press conferences, and losses much harder than this. But nothing prepares you for being humiliated by your own child. Emma leaned toward her friend, whispering loudly enough for the table to hear. "He's harmless, really. Just a bit old-fashioned." I watched her, not with anger, but with a quiet sadness that sat deep in my chest. It wasn't the words that hurt. It was the way she said them, like love was an inconvenience she couldn't wait to outgrow. Halfway through dinner, one of the men, a tall guy with a neat haircut, looked oddly familiar. He introduced himself as Ryan from development. He worked at a company called Carver Industries. The name struck a chord. I said, "Carver Industries? That's a good place to be. How long have you been there?" He smiled politely. "Almost 6 years now. We just had new leadership move in. Been a positive change." Across the table, Emma's tone brightened. "I'm up for a management position soon," she said proudly. "The CEO's supposed to review my file this quarter." My hands rested on my lap, steady. "That's wonderful," I said softly. "You must have worked hard for it." She smirked, sipping her wine. "I don't get things handed to me, Dad. Some of us actually earn what we have." The table laughed again. I didn't answer. But I knew something no one there did. Carver Industries wasn't just a company I'd once worked for. It was mine, my life's work. I'd built it from the ground up, sold the public shares, and kept controlling interest under an old holding name that didn't bear my own anymore. I looked around that table, the laughter, the pride, the young, blind arrogance, and saw every lesson Emma had refused to learn staring back at me. When the check came, she reached for it quickly. "No, Dad," she said in front of everyone. "You've done enough. Let me pay for once." I let her. I even smiled. "Thank you," I said quietly. But inside, something in me shifted. Not out of vengeance, just understanding. She had no idea that every one of those friends sitting beside her owed their paychecks to the man she called a burden. The night ended with polite hugs and photos, her arm stiffly looped through mine for appearance's sake. On the ride home, she barely spoke. At the red light, I looked at her face in the reflection of the window. So much of her mother in her eyes, yet so much distance in the space between us. That's when I realized, maybe love can't always protect your children from who they become. The drive home was quiet, just the soft hum of tires on wet asphalt. Emma scrolled through her phone, her face glowing in the light of the screen. Every now and then, she'd let out a faint laugh at a message, not once looking up. I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. The car smelled faintly of her perfume, jasmine and something expensive. I used to love that scent when she was a teenager, back when she'd hug me before school and say, "Don't work too hard, Dad." Now she just sat beside me, a stranger with my last name. After a few minutes, I tried to speak. "You seemed happy tonight." She didn't look up. "Yeah, it went great. My friends really like the place." I nodded. "They're ambitious people." "They're professionals," she corrected. "It's different. Different." I let that word hang between us. I wanted to tell her that I recognized half the faces at that table. Ryan from development, Claire from marketing, the same Claire who once told me, "Mr. Carter, your leadership changed my career." But Emma didn't know that. She never asked what I used to do. She never cared to. The rain started to fall, a slow patter against the windshield. "I didn't mean to embarrass you," she said suddenly, her tone clipped. "But you do realize not everyone gets the whole retired CEO thing. You talk about people like they matter more than numbers. That's old school." I smiled faintly. "Maybe that's why it worked." She sighed. "Dad, this isn't about you. It's about me trying to build something. You had your time." "I thought we were building the same thing," I said quietly. She looked at me then, her eyes sharp. "You don't understand how the world works anymore." Maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't. Or maybe I just didn't want to. When I dropped her off at her condo, she barely waited for the car to stop before unbuckling. "Don't stay up worrying," she said lightly. "I've got everything handled." I nodded. "I know you do." She gave a quick wave and walked inside without turning back. I sat there for a long time, watching her door close, the city lights reflecting on the wet pavement. On the passenger seat, I noticed she'd left her napkin from dinner. A small stain of wine on the corner, her lipstick smudged across the edge. I folded it gently and placed it in the glove compartment. When I finally got home, the house was silent. Ellen's photograph still sat on the mantel, her smile calm, knowing. I poured myself a small glass of whiskey and sat by the window, the same way I used to when we were first married, back when Emma's laughter filled the rooms. I reached into my wallet and pulled out the old photo I always kept there. Emma at 6 years old, standing in our backyard, her face covered in birthday cake. Her mother had taken it the moment she'd shouted, "I'll make you proud, Daddy." I whispered into the dark, "You did, sweetheart. You did once." The rain kept falling outside, soft and steady. The next morning, I woke early. Old habits die hard. The sun had barely touched the city skyline when I got dressed, put on my gray suit, and left the house. Most people my age spend their mornings with coffee and crossword puzzles. I still preferred the quiet hum of an office. Carver Industries sat on the north side of Chicago. Glass, steel, and history. My history. I hadn't been there in months, not since handing daily operations to the next generation of executives. But the moment I walked through the doors, the security guard straightened. "Morning, Mr. Carter," he said. "Good morning, Tom." He smiled, the kind of smile that remembered where the story began. That's how it always was here. People remembered. As I walked past the reception desk, a few employees nodded politely. Most of them were too young to know who I really was. To them, I was a quiet old man who sometimes visited the upper floors, maybe a consultant. And that was fine. On the elevator up, I thought of Emma's dinner again. How she'd laughed, bragging about her promotion. I remembered Ryan, the polite man across the table. He'd been one of our best developers, humble and sharp. Ellen would have liked him. When the elevator doors opened, I stepped into the executive wing. My old assistant, Mark, looked up from his desk. His hair had gone grayer since I'd last seen him. "Daniel," he said, smiling. "Didn't expect you this morning." "Just felt like seeing the place," I said. "Is Ryan still on the analytics team?" He nodded. "Yes, sir. Strong performer. He's part of the division your daughter oversees now." I murmured. "How's that going?" Mark hesitated, his eyes dropping. "She's talented, but a little demanding. Some of the younger staff find her difficult. She pushes hard for recognition." I smiled faintly. She always did. He studied me carefully. "Are you planning to speak with her?" "Not yet," I said. "Sometimes silence teaches louder than words." He didn't press further. Instead, he handed me a folder, quarterly reports, budgets, the usual weight of a company's pulse. "Everything's steady," he said. "Your legacy's safe." Legacy. That word always felt heavier than it sounded. I thanked him and walked to my old office. They'd redecorated since I left. New art, new desk, same view. The skyline spread out beneath the window, the river glinting in the morning light. For a while, I just stood there, hands in my pockets. Somewhere below, in one of those cubicles, my daughter was giving orders, completely unaware that her CEO review, the one she bragged about, would end at this very desk. Ryan passed by the window, heading into a meeting. When he saw me, he paused and waved respectfully. I nodded back. He had no idea that the man who'd quietly signed his promotion was standing right there. A small smile touched my lips. Not pride, something softer. I'd built this company to provide people with stability, fairness, opportunity. I never imagined my own daughter would grow up inside that system and forget the values that built it. Before leaving, I wrote a short note to Mark. "Set up leadership evaluations for next month. Include all division heads." He would know what that meant. As I walked out of the building, the city noise swelled again. Car horns, chatter, construction. Life going on, blind to the quiet decisions shaping it. I thought of Emma, sitting in some corner office, unaware of the ground shifting beneath her. Not out of revenge, out of truth. 3 days later, Emma came by the house, unannounced as usual. Her visits were never long, never soft. Just quick check-ins that looked like duty and sounded like noise. She walked in without knocking. "You should lock your door, Dad. It's not safe." I smiled faintly. At my age, the worst that can happen is someone steals the remote. She rolled her eyes, dropping her purse on the couch. "You joke, but you're alone too much. You should move into one of those retirement communities. Nice ones with social activities and nurses. You'd have people your age to talk to." I studied her face. The suggestion wasn't cruel, just careless. The kind of thing said by someone who'd forgotten what roots meant. "I like the quiet," I said. She shrugged. "It's just weird seeing you in this big house, that's all. You used to be so busy. Now you just stay here." "I've learned to enjoy stillness," I said. "It's cheaper than therapy." She laughed politely, not catching the meaning. "Anyway, I came by because work's been insane. My department's up for re-evaluation. We've got this leadership review coming. Everyone's terrified, even Ryan, and he's the golden boy." I kept my face still. "Oh? Who's doing the review?" "No idea. she said. Some big shot from corporate. The CEO, maybe. We've never met him directly, but apparently, he's got final say on promotions. The rumor is he's ruthless. I smiled to myself. Sounds like he values results. Yeah, she said, leaning back. I do too. But half the people there wouldn't survive without me keeping them in line. You wouldn't believe how lazy they are. They act like I'm the problem. Her words cut deeper than she knew. I'd once taught her that leadership wasn't about control, it was about service. But somewhere along the way, she'd traded empathy for ego. Maybe they just need a little understanding, I said quietly. She frowned. Understanding doesn't hit targets, Dad. This isn't the old days. You can't run things on kindness anymore. I looked at her, really looked. The tailored blazer, the practiced smile, the restless energy. All ambition, no peace. I suppose not, I said softly. She stood and grabbed her purse. Anyway, I have to go. I'll call you next week, okay? You always say that, I said gently. She paused at the door, half turning. You make it sound like I don't care. I met her eyes. I think you care in theory. That's different from showing up. Her face hardened for a second, then softened just as quickly. You always make me feel guilty, she murmured. I just make you feel, I said. She sighed and left without another word. When the door closed, I looked around the living room, the family photos, the worn leather chair she used to climb into as a child, the piano her mother taught her to play. Everything she wanted to move past was still here, standing quietly, waiting for her to remember. I walked to the mantel and adjusted the picture of Ellen. She's lost her way, love, I whispered, but she's not lost yet. The room was still for a long time. Then the old clock ticked once, slow, deliberate, like it agreed. That night, after she left, I couldn't sleep. The words she'd said, "You can't run things on kindness anymore," kept replaying in my head. Maybe she really believed that. Maybe she'd forgotten who taught her everything she knew about leadership in the first place. By morning, I was back at the office. Mark was surprised to see me again. "Couldn't stay away, could you?" he said with a grin. "Something like that," I replied. "I'd like to see the latest personnel files, department heads, performance reports, all of it." He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Including hers?" "Yes," I said quietly. "Especially hers." I spent most of the day alone in the conference room, the blinds drawn halfway to keep out the glare. The folders sat stacked neatly in front of me, each one a story of effort, progress, and potential. I flipped through them slowly until I reached the one with her name on the tab. Emma Carter, Department Lead. The first few pages were promising. She hit her numbers, exceeded projections, ran efficient teams. But the deeper I read, the Oscar, more the tone shifted. Words like abrasive, condescending, poor collaboration appeared in the employee feedback summaries. Ryan's evaluation was among them. He'd written, "She's brilliant, but she doesn't listen. She manages through fear, not trust." I sat back in the chair, closing my eyes for a moment. I'd heard that same tone before. From board members who cared about profits more than people. From executives who thought leadership meant control. I'd spent my life trying to build a company that wasn't like that. And now, my own daughter had become exactly what I'd fought against. I picked up a pen and turned to the last page, the space for senior review. The section marked CEO comments was blank. I stared at it for a long time. I could write anything there. One sentence could change her entire career. One line could open a door or close it forever. I thought of Ellen again. How she used to say, Power's only real when you choose not to use it. I set the pen down and leaned back, watching the rain streak the windows. For a moment, I let myself feel everything at once: pride, sadness, love, disappointment. All of it belonged to the same story. Finally, I picked up the pen and wrote just one line beneath her name. Pending evaluation by CEO. Recommendation withheld until leadership maturity improves. I didn't sign it, not yet. When I closed the folder, I noticed something sticking out from the back, a printed email chain from her team. The last message was from Ryan. It read, "She's under a lot of pressure. I think she just wants to prove herself. Maybe she doesn't know how." That last sentence stayed with me. Maybe she really didn't know how. Maybe I'd taught her how to succeed, but never how to rest. I slipped the folder into my briefcase and turned off the lights. The office was quiet now, except for the hum of the city outside. As I stepped out, Mark called from his desk. "Everything all right, Daniel?" I gave him a small smile. "It will be," I said, "one way or another." The meeting was scheduled for Friday morning, a leadership review for all department heads. Emma arrived early, confident as ever. She wore a navy suit, her hair tied back tight, every detail rehearsed. She didn't know who she was about to face. I sat in the adjoining conference room with Mark, reviewing the agenda. "You sure about this?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I said. "It's time she sees the whole picture." The clock struck 9. One by one, the department heads filed in. Ryan, Claire, and the others from her dinner table, the same people who had laughed at her jokes about me. All took their seats, whispering about the mysterious owner who was attending in person. Emma stood at the head of the table, flipping through her notes. "All right, everyone," she said briskly. "Let's keep this professional. Whoever the CEO is, they're just another person. No reason to panic." Ryan gave a small, nervous laugh. "Easy for you to say, boss." Then the door opened. Mark stepped in first. "Good morning," he said, voice steady. "Please stand to welcome the owner of Carver Industries." Their eyes turned toward the doorway, and I walked in. The air went still. Emma's face froze, every trace of color draining out. For a moment, she didn't breathe. "Good morning," I said, my voice calm. "Please sit." They all sat, except her. "Dad," she whispered. "Mr. Carter," I corrected softly. She blinked fast, struggling to compose herself. "I don't understand. You're the man who signs your paychecks," I said gently, "and the man who once believed leadership meant compassion." The others exchanged glances, shifting in their chairs. I could feel the weight of their silence pressing against her. I placed a file on the table. "I've reviewed every department," I said, scanning the room. "Most of you are performing admirably. But I've also read your feedback. Words like respect, teamwork, and humility seem to have faded somewhere along the way." Ryan looked down, his hands folded tightly. I continued, my tone even. "A company doesn't thrive because of one person's ambition. It thrives because people trust one another, because they believe in something larger than themselves." I let my eyes fall on Emma. She stared back, rigid, her breathing shallow. When leaders forget that, everything else eventually breaks. No one spoke, not even her. After a long pause, I closed the folder. "That's all I wanted to say today," I said quietly. "You can go." The employees rose slowly, unsure what to say, and filed out of the room. Ryan gave me a small, respectful nod on his way out. The kind of look you give someone when truth finally fits into place. When the door closed, Emma was still standing there, her voice shaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" Would you have listened? I asked. She looked away, jaw tight. You made me look like a fool. No, I said. You did that when you called your father a burden. Her shoulders slumped. So this was revenge. I shook my head. No, Emma. This was reflection. For the first time in years, she looked small, not weak, just stripped of her armor. I didn't mean what I said, she whispered. I know, I replied. But you did mean who you were when you said it. Silence filled the room. The city outside went on as if nothing had changed. When she finally left, she didn't look back. I stayed behind, watching the door close slowly, the echo fading into the stillness. The meeting was over, but something deeper had just begun. That evening, I came home to a house that felt heavier than usual. Maybe it was the silence after the storm, that strange calm that follows truth when it finally lands where it was meant to. I poured myself a cup of tea instead of whiskey. It seemed like a night that called for clarity, not comfort. For hours, I sat in my chair by the window, thinking about the look on Emma's face in that conference room. Not the shock, I'd expected that, but the flicker of recognition that came after. The look of someone realizing too late that love had been mistaken for limitation. Just after 9, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find her standing there, still in her work clothes, makeup streaked from tears. She didn't say anything at first, just looked at me, her expression caught between pride and regret. May I come in? She asked softly. I stepped aside. Always. She sat on the couch, her purse still clutched tight in her lap. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the ticking clock in the hallway. Finally, she said, I didn't know, Dad. I swear I didn't. All these years I thought you just faded away, that you didn't understand ambition anymore. I nodded slowly. I understood it too well. I just hoped you'd chase something higher than titles. She looked down, twisting her fingers. When I called you a burden, I didn't mean it. It was convenient, I said quietly. Easier than admitting you were ashamed of where you came from. Her chin trembled. You don't know how hard I've worked to prove myself. Oh, I do, I said. I saw it in every report, every number. You've worked hard to be respected, but not to be kind. Somewhere along the way, you confused fear for leadership. Her eyes filled with tears. I just wanted to make you proud. I sighed, leaning forward. Emma, I was proud the day you were born. Everything after that was just details. That broke her. The words cracked something in her chest. She covered her face with her hands, crying the way she hadn't since she was little. I let her. I didn't move, didn't speak. Sometimes silence is the only apology that matters. When she finally looked up, I walked to the shelf and took down a small frame. Inside was the photograph I'd kept in my wallet for decades, her at 6 years old, cake on her face, smiling at the camera like the world was safe. I handed it to her. That's who I still see, I said softly. Every time you speak, every time you fall, every time you forget. That's my daughter. She held the frame to her chest, her tears falling quietly now. I don't deserve this, she whispered. No, I said, but love doesn't wait for you to. She nodded, unable to speak. For a while, we just sat there, side by side, the way we used to when she was a child, afraid of thunderstorms. Only now, it wasn't thunder. It was truth. Before she left, she stopped at the door. What happens now? I looked at her. That depends on what you remember from this. She nodded slowly. I'll try to be better. Try to be real, I said. Better comes later. When the door closed behind her, I felt something quiet settle inside me. Not peace, not pain. Just the stillness that follows when love has spoken and has nothing left to prove. It's been 3 weeks since that night. The company's moved forward, the world kept spinning, and Emma hasn't called again. Not yet. I'm not sure if she's avoiding me or just figuring out who she is without the armor. I've seen her name on a few internal memos. Still in her role, still leading her department. The tone of those notes feels different, softer. She's listening more, thanking her team publicly. Maybe she's learning. Maybe something reached her that day that words never could. I spend my mornings like I used to before the noise began. Black coffee, open window, a quiet house. Sometimes I drive by the lake Ellen loved. I still talk to her there like she's sitting beside me, the way she used to when she'd tell me that love isn't ownership. It's stewardship. I think she'd be proud. Not because I held power or used it carefully, but because I didn't let bitterness decide what kind of man I'd end as. But some nights, when the house feels too big, I wonder if I did the right thing. Maybe I should have stopped the meeting before it became a lesson. Maybe I should have protected Emma from the embarrassment. Or maybe she needed it. Maybe that's how growth works. It only starts when pride breaks first. I still keep that little photo of her on my desk. Frosting on her cheeks, eyes full of sunlight. When I look at it, I can still hear her voice from decades ago. I'll make you proud, Daddy. She already did. She just doesn't know it anymore. And so I ask you, the ones listening, what should I do now? Should I forgive her and reach out first, even after everything she said? Should I stay silent and let her come when she's ready to understand what love really costs? Or should I step away completely before her ambition swallows whatever's left of the girl I raised? Because no matter how cruel her words were, no matter how deep they cut, I still love her.